Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. My name is Yev, and previously I did a review video of the Akaso Brave 6 Plus camera. The goal was just to slap it onto my helmet, figure out how to use it, ride around with it, and just see how it performed. I didn't really get to dive deep into the different video settings and the different resolution, frame rates, etc. So I promised back then that I would try to do a good, thorough video. So here we go. Without talking too much more, let's go ahead and dive into the first video setting.
All right, we are at 4K, 30 frames per second. For me, my most common resolution and setting there. Stabilizer is on. I'm using my external mic. By the way, how does it sound like if I'm standing? So I'm going about 50 miles an hour, maybe 45. And now I am standing. There's a lot less buffeting from my windscreen, so I'm wondering if just the consistent wind noise is going to be actually easier on the camera mic than the buffeting sound. Like right now, this compared to this, and compared back to this. And I'm going to keep talking, going to keep talking, going to keep talking. Of course, I'm going pretty fast right now. Usually when I'm standing on off-road areas, I'm not going this fast. I'm gonna keep talking. But my purpose for this is, if you're riding a naked bike with no wind protection, you might actually have a decent result if your helmet's quiet. But if you have a funky windscreen that doesn't do anything for you, except for create wind buffeting, then you just won't be able to do anything about it, you know. As far as the wind noise that I'm getting, it's all buffeting around my helmet. And I can adjust this a little bit, but not enough to actually fix it. As a rider, I'm used to it, but you know, things like microphones, they always pick things up more than we think.
So at this point, I decided to try to turn off the image stabilization, and here's the results. It's obviously pretty shaky, but another thing to notice in this clip is that it's very loud. There's a lot of wind noise, and that's because though I did have the external microphone plugged into the camera, it wasn't, I guess it must have not been plugged in all the way, and the camera didn't recognize the microphone, so it used its internal microphone, and all it did was catch a bunch of wind noise. And you know what, guys? There's no way you can verify this. It's very frustrating. This is not the first time it's happened to me. The only thing I know to do to avoid this is to plug it in as hard as you can and maybe use some tape to hold in the connector. But beyond that, the stabilization turned off. You'll notice that the image is actually a little wider. If you compare with the stabilizer on and off, you'll see that the stabilization crops in, and that's pretty normal with electronic stabilization because it crops in to compensate for the movement. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the stabilization here, and then just for the fun of it, use Final Cut Pro to stabilize it, and it obviously cropped back in. But one thing for sure is that the Akaso stabilization is superior to the software that I'm using. And the lesson here is just go ahead and use the stabilization that the camera offers because it's probably smarter and smoother.
We're at 2.6K with 30 frames per second. Electronic image stabilization is on. And we're not going super fast, just kind of around these curvy roads. Trying to get an idea of what the video quality gives us, and of course the sound quality as well. Now, one thing you may have noticed with pretty much any kind of video settings, the image stabilization is a little quirky. So it's all electronic. It uses software to stabilize the image, and what ends up happening is you move your head, or maybe you're going around a corner, and the first thing that the camera does is it thinks that it's losing its axis off of where it's going, and it tries to correct. And then it probably realizes that, no, you are really trying to turn your head to the left. So it quickly pans to the left, and you get these little jerking motions. You know, everything is smooth, 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 and all of a sudden you have this bump, either to the top, to the left, to the whatever direction it is. And this is something I noticed with a lot of action cameras. GoPros suffered from the same thing. I'm not sure about the new ones, but the previous generations, they had this stabilization issue as well. And typically you don't notice it when you're watching the like if you're looking at the motorcycle, because what really gets shifted around is the background. almost like the camera is trying to stabilize the object. The subject in this case is the dashboard of the bike, speedometer, or maybe a person talking, but the background will judder around.
Now you'll notice with the 1440p that the aspect ratio is actually different. It's a 4:3 aspect ratio instead of a 16:9 like 1080p and 4K. And the reason for this is, I guess some smartphones had this aspect ratio, and so it became momentarily popular maybe. But the point is, it's probably not as widely used anymore because of YouTube and stuff. Most everything is 16:9 now. Also, you'll note that my microphone did fail me again. I thought it was plugged in, but it must have not been plugged in all the way, and you're hearing a bunch of wind noise again. And I'm probably talking in the video, but I have no idea that I'm not recording my voice. Pretty frustrating stuff, to be honest.
All right, now we are at 1080p at 60 frames per second. Not sure how the wind noise is, but as long as you can hear my voice, I guess that's a good thing. That's really the thing about this microphone, and some other reviewers have noticed this, is that when things start getting real loud, it almost automatically compensates for that and sort of reduces the input volume, but then it ends up picking your noise pretty well. Okay, camera's still recording. And the sun is setting. It's 8:40 p.m. and the sun sets around 8:30, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Which means that theoretically this is past sunset, and it's not bright outside. So we'll have to check out this footage and see how it behaves. From previous Akaso camera reviews, people have noted that they don't do super well with low light situations, but people would test that in their house with the lights turned off. There's a big difference between that and riding around at sunset, because there's a lot of ambient light outside that you don't get in a building. So hopefully you got a pretty good idea of the different video settings, the resolution, overall quality of this camera. But before I end this video, I want to leave you with one thought. Hey, you probably noticed my frustration with the microphone not being dependable. And yeah, I was incredibly frustrated when I got home and I found out that the microphone wasn't working, and that happened more than once. But with all of that pushed aside, I just want to say that this camera is $120, and if Akaso could do this with 120 bucks, then I can't even imagine what they could do with a camera 3 times as expensive. And really the point of this camera is it's budget friendly, and that's why I got it. If I had an endless amount of money, I would be chasing something better and probably never catching it, right? Because there's always something next, always something better out there. But for now, this will do. I'm happy with it. I have no regrets. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.